The words were whispered so quietly that almost nobody else heard them, but they cut deeper than a knife. "You're too fat for him." Victoria smiled as she leaned close to Hannah's ear, then stepped back as if nothing had happened. Around them, the ballroom sparkled with golden lights, expensive crystal chandeliers, and elegant guests dressed in designer clothes. Soft music filled the air, but for Hannah, every sound suddenly disappeared. She lowered her eyes and forced herself to smile because she had spent most of her life pretending that cruel words did not hurt. They always did. She simply refused to let anyone watch her break. Hannah had been invited to the charity gala because she managed one of the city's largest children's shelters. She cared more about helping forgotten children than buying expensive dresses or impressing wealthy people. Her simple dark red gown was beautiful, but Victoria saw only an opportunity to humiliate her. Victoria came from one of the richest families in the country. She was admired in magazines, followed by millions online, and feared by almost everyone who worked around her. She believed beauty was power and that anyone who looked different deserved to stand in the shadows. Standing beside Hannah was Ethan, a successful businessman known not only for his fortune but also for his honesty. He respected Hannah deeply because he had quietly donated to her shelter for years. Victoria had spent months trying to win Ethan's attention. She believed every wealthy man eventually chose glamour over kindness. Seeing him talking warmly with Hannah made her furious. Hannah stepped away from the crowd and walked toward the balcony. She needed a moment to breathe. She looked over the city lights and reminded herself of something her late grandmother had once said. "People who judge your body rarely have the courage to look at their own hearts." Those words had carried her through years of teasing, rejection, and loneliness. She whispered them again until her tears stopped falling. Inside the ballroom, Victoria laughed with her friends as if nothing had happened. She believed she had already won. Ethan noticed Hannah had disappeared. He quietly excused himself and found her standing alone outside. He did not ask why she looked sad. Instead, he simply stood beside her and admired the lights stretching across the city. After a long silence he smiled gently. "This is the first quiet moment I've had all evening." Hannah laughed softly despite herself. It was a small laugh, but it was real. They talked for nearly an hour. Not about money or business, but about family, childhood memories, books, and the children at the shelter. Ethan listened carefully to every story she told. He realized she spoke about every child with the love most people reserved only for their own families. By the time they returned inside, something had changed. They were no longer strangers. Victoria noticed immediately. Jealousy filled her face. She interrupted their conversation several times, trying to pull Ethan away, but he always found his way back to Hannah. The evening ended with a charity auction. Unexpectedly, Ethan stood before the audience and announced that he would personally fund the construction of a new education center for Hannah's shelter. The guests applauded loudly. Hannah was overwhelmed. She tried to thank him, but emotion stole her words. Victoria clapped politely, yet inside she was burning with anger. She could not accept that a woman she considered ordinary had become the center of everyone's admiration. That same night, Victoria made a decision. If humiliation had not destroyed Hannah, she would destroy her reputation instead. Over the following weeks, false rumors began spreading across the city. Anonymous social media accounts claimed Hannah had manipulated wealthy donors for money. Others accused her of secretly stealing charity funds. Reporters started asking uncomfortable questions. Some sponsors quietly withdrew their support before checking whether any of the accusations were true. Donations to the shelter fell sharply. Hannah watched as worried employees wondered how they would continue feeding hundreds of children. Every lie hurt, but what hurt even more was seeing innocent children suffer because adults enjoyed spreading cruelty. Ethan offered to fight the rumors publicly, but Hannah gently shook her head. "Truth doesn't become stronger by shouting louder," she told him. "It becomes stronger by surviving every lie." Ethan admired her patience, even though it was painful to watch. Day after day Hannah continued working exactly as before. She greeted every child with the same smile. She visited hospitals, organized meals, comforted frightened teenagers, and never spoke badly about the people attacking her. Many wondered how she remained so calm. The answer was simple. She had learned long ago that bitterness only gives victory to those who create pain. Months passed. The rumors continued, but so did Hannah's quiet kindness. One rainy afternoon, an elderly accountant arrived unexpectedly at the shelter. He carried several boxes filled with financial records. His hands trembled as he introduced himself. For nearly 20 years he had worked for Victoria's family company. Now he was retiring, and his conscience would no longer let him stay silent. He looked directly at Hannah and said, "There are things you deserve to know. The truth has been hidden for far too long." Hannah felt her heart begin to race. She had no idea that the man standing before her was about to reveal a secret powerful enough to change all of their lives forever. Hannah invited the elderly accountant into her office and quietly closed the door. He carefully placed the heavy boxes on her desk and took a long breath before speaking. "I have watched good people suffer while dishonest people became more powerful," he said. "I stayed silent because I was afraid. I don't want to spend the rest of my life carrying that shame." Inside the boxes were financial records, emails, contracts, and bank transfers. Every document pointed toward the same truth. Victoria had secretly used several fake charities to hide company money, avoid taxes, and make herself appear generous in public. Even worse, the anonymous accounts that had spread lies about Hannah were linked to employees working directly under Victoria's instructions. Hannah stared at the papers in disbelief. She had never imagined that someone would go so far simply because of jealousy. Ethan immediately contacted independent investigators and experienced lawyers. Unlike Victoria, he refused to attack anyone with rumors. He wanted every accusation supported by evidence. Weeks of investigation followed. One by one, every document was verified. Every financial trail led back to Victoria's organization. The truth became impossible to hide. Then came the annual charity awards, the most important social event in the city. Victoria arrived wearing another expensive designer gown, smiling confidently as photographers surrounded her. She believed the evening would celebrate her generosity once again. She had no idea that everything was about to change. Just before the ceremony began, government investigators entered the ballroom. Conversations stopped. Cameras turned toward the unexpected visitors. The lead investigator calmly approached Victoria and informed her that she was under investigation for financial fraud, tax evasion, and organizing a coordinated campaign of defamation against a charitable organization. The room fell. Completely silent. Victoria laughed at first. She believed no one would dare challenge her family's influence. Then she saw the investigators placing copies of the evidence onto the table. Her confident smile slowly disappeared. Some of the same people who had once praised her quietly stepped away. Others lowered their eyes, pretending they had never truly known her. The applause she had always enjoyed was replaced by uncomfortable silence. Hannah never celebrated Victoria's humiliation. She stood quietly near the back of the room, feeling sadness more than satisfaction. Ethan looked at her with surprise. "After everything she did to you, you still don't hate her?" Hannah gently shook her head. "Hate would only make me become someone I never wanted to be." Those simple words stayed with everyone who heard them. Over the following months the investigation continued. The court found overwhelming evidence against Victoria. She lost control of her company, her public image collapsed, and many business partners ended their relationships with her family. The fortune she believed would protect her could not protect her from the truth. Meanwhile, every accusation against Hannah was completely cleared. Independent auditors confirmed that every donation had been used exactly as promised. News organizations that had repeated the false rumors publicly apologized. Donations to the children's shelter returned, stronger than ever before. Thousands of people who had followed the story decided to support Hannah's work. Volunteers arrived every week. New classrooms were built. More children found safe homes, good teachers, and warm meals. One afternoon a little girl at the shelter hugged Hannah tightly and whispered, "When I grow up, I want to be kind like you." Hannah smiled through quiet tears. That compliment meant more than every award or newspaper headline she had ever received. Months later Ethan invited Hannah to the grand opening of the new education center. As hundreds of children filled the building with laughter, he handed her a small wooden plaque. It read, "True beauty is measured by the lives we lift, not by the bodies we judge." Hannah looked at the words for a long moment before embracing him. She realized that the cruel whisper she had heard on the night of the gala no longer had any power over her. It had become nothing more than a distant memory. Ethan eventually asked Hannah to marry him, not because she looked a certain way, but because he had seen her courage when almost everyone else believed lies. Their wedding was simple, filled with children from the shelter, close friends, and ordinary people whose lives had been touched by kindness. There were no extravagant decorations, no competition, and no need to impress anyone. There was only genuine happiness. Years later, people rarely remembered Victoria's glamorous parties or expensive dresses. Those things had faded with time. But they still remembered Hannah, the quiet woman who answered cruelty with patience, lies with truth, and humiliation with compassion. The woman once mocked for her appearance became a symbol of dignity for thousands of people who had spent their lives believing they were never enough. In the end, justice did not arrive through revenge or anger. It arrived through honesty, courage, and the quiet strength of a heart that refused to become bitter. The whisper that was meant to destroy Hannah's confidence ended up exposing the emptiness hidden inside the person who spoke it. And while Victoria lost everything she believed made her powerful, Hannah gained something far greater. She earned respect that could never be bought, love that never depended on appearance, and a life filled with people who saw the beauty that had been inside her all along.